and I set a Google News alert for Julian Assange, and I read every interview that he gave, and then I took them to my own Twitter feed, and I hyped them relentlessly for the purpose of drawing media and voter attention to disclosures when they came in October. That's called politics. I am guilty of politics.
You know, Russia has also been accused of meddling in European affairs. Like, do you think that's also like a myth, like you just described?
Well, again, there's a difference between collusion between the Russian state and the Trump campaign and meddling. Do you think we haven't meddled in foreign elections? Do you think we didn't meddle in the most recent Israeli election? Do you think we didn't spend the money to elect Boris Yeltsin? Please, let's be realistic.
I wanted to ask you about the late night phone calls
Yes.
that you made to President Trump.
No,
Is there
you mean the ones he made to me?
you?
Yes.
Yes. Anything problematic in those
None
calls that
none-
Mueller will zero in on?
None whatsoever. First of all, on those occasions where the president calls you, he does most of the talking, you do most of the listening. It has always been my policy for 3 years now not to discuss the content of those phone calls, other than I can say definitively, we never discussed WikiLeaks or the WikiLeaks disclosures. I said that on Meet the Press over a year ago. I said it again on Sunday. Nothing has changed.
Do you think Mueller's goal in this investigation is finding out if there was collusion or going after obstruction of justice, mainly zeroing in on Trump?
I think his target is undoing the results of the last election and removing this president.
And how do you think it's going to end up? Do you think he will be removed from
Well,
office?
certainly not on the basis of Russian collusion, because I believe there is none.
So if you say that your life has been a hell for 2 years, has everything been worth it if you look at the president right now?
Well, I think we have a president who's turning us away from globalism, who I hopefully will step up on the question of internet censorship, which I think is one of the most important questions facing the country. So yes, I think the taking the country back from the two-party duopoly and the neocons that were driving this country into the ditch has been worth every bit of it.
What does that mean, though? He says draining the swamp, but there is a lot of Republicans in this White House that you have been critical about, such as Vice President Pence, etc.
No question about it. There are people in the administration who I disagree with, and sometimes I scratch my head about the president's appointment of men and women who didn't vote for him, don't support his policies, and don't have the success of his reform agenda at heart.
Anybody in particular that comes to mind when you say that?
I'm not going to name names. I think it's pretty apparent. But some of the worst ones are gone. Mr. McMaster, good riddance.
Have you given any advice to President Trump recently on any specific issues?
I have not. I have not spoken to the president in some time. He's under federal investigation, as you know. It's a joke. I'm sure his lawyers and mine, I'm sure, my lawyers have urged me not to speak to him. I'm certain his lawyers have urged him to say the same thing. I think his sentiments were made known in that tweet, however, and I'm very proud of it.
Do you foresee Mueller's team opening this process to the public at all, like you've called for? Do you think they'll actually do that, or do you think in the end they're going to keep it behind closed doors?
I have no idea. I mean, a congressional inquiry and a special counsel's inquiry are two very completely different things.
Mr. Stone,
Yes,
big league
sir.
politics.
Yes.
Wondering, so prior to the election, you were talking about how if the Democrats gain the House, they're going to essentially Kavanaugh Trump using the sexual allegations that were
Yes,
placed against him in the campaign.
I still believe, absent any proof of Russian collusion, that the House Democrats will still vote articles of impeachment against the president. I think they will recycle the 19 women who came forward in 2016 and falsely accuse the president of sexual assault or sexual harassment. I think they will have no more evidence or proof or corroboration than did the critics of Judge Kavanaugh. But if you saw the attempted lynching of Judge Kavanaugh, you have seen the dry run. You have seen the dress rehearsal for the establishment's fallback plan to try to remove this president.
Mr. Stone, do you think other people should claim the fifth that have been subjected to Mueller's investigation?
I think each individual has to make their own decision. Again, if you look at the letter that we released yesterday from my attorneys, I would literally have to provide 3 tractor trailer loads of documents for them to root through. No reasonable person can remember everything they have ever written. I have over 1 million emails. I answered these questions once. The results of that testimony will be made public here relatively shortly. Some are still going to try to argue that I was less than truthful, but I was absolutely truthful about the fact that Randy Credico was my source. His argument that that's not possible because he couldn't have been my source in late July, given that he did not interview Julian Assange or meet him until late August, is irrelevant. He reveals the woman lawyer who worked for WikiLeaks who was his source. And as for Jerry Corsi's two claims, they are completely and totally and provably false. Did not know about the Billy Bush NBC tape in advance, and there would be no reason for me to prevaricate over the question of John Podesta's emails. If you looked at the Peter Schweitzer piece published in the New York Post on July 31st, From Russia with Money, if you looked at the Breitbart story on August 14th about Tony Podesta's representation of the same Ukrainian political party as Paul Manafort, these things were not state secrets. My tweet was based on public information. I did ask Dr. Corsi for a roundup memo that I could use to give reporters, in other words, make it the Podesta's time in the barrel, and he supplied it. And he asked me by text on at least 10 subsequent occasions if I was having any success in getting any reporters' interest in that memo, proving yet again that the memo was precisely what I said it was.
Mr. Stone, do you have any comment on QAnon?
I do not.
You said that the allegation that the person committed witness tampering in that tweet was...
How is it possible? I said nothing. I didn't say anything on Sunday I hadn't said 40 times before over the last 2 weeks.
Has he ever expressed that same sentiment to you privately?
He has not. We've never discussed it. And as I said on ABC, the only person I've ever discussed a pardon for with the president, and this was in writing, was for Marcus Garvey, the early civil rights leader, who's somebody I admire and think got railroaded by the FBI.
Didn't you also ask for a pardon for Julian Assange?
I wrote 5 different op-ed pieces in public urging one, but I never wrote the president on it, nor did I discuss it with him. So if he knows my views, he would only know it by knowing what I wrote publicly.
Now, you said that part of the reason why you want public testimony and that you want to plead the fifth is that you might have trouble remembering things. Would you at least...
Because is this a perjury trap? Is this a process about trumped-up process crimes? Or is it about Russian collusion? Again, if somebody has evidence that I colluded with the Russians, let them produce it. Otherwise, the frivolous semantics, the lawyer tricks, and the parsing of words, this is a game. It's a political game, and I decline to participate.
But would you at least be willing to hand over documents, if not provide testimony?
I answered that question in my letter yesterday.
So what about going forward? What do you see happening with Robert Mueller's investigation?
You'd have to ask him.
What is the
Going to
process?
the Corey Lewandowski breakfast at this conference.
Highly, highly unlikely.
Mr. Stone, what would be the process now that you've claimed the fifth? What are they going to, how do they proceed?
That will be up to them. As I understand it, they can offer me immunity, or they can attempt to subpoena me. I will still invoke my Fifth Amendment rights.
So they're basically at a stop.
I'm not an attorney, but that is my understanding.
God
All right,
bless you.
thank you.
God bless
God
you.
bless.